Here is a fact that stopped me cold the first time I read it. Scientists recently confirmed that biological aging does not happen in a slow, steady line. It accelerates. And one of the sharpest acceleration points they identified happens right around the age of 50. Blood vessels, muscle tissue, hormonal systems, multiple organs showing measurable change faster than at almost any other decade of life. That means your 50s are not the beginning of a slow decline. They are a biological turning point. And what you do at that turning point matters more than almost anything else you will do for your health. I'm Dr. Emma Thompson, and today I want to walk you through 5 of the most evidence-based, scientifically supported strategies for not just surviving your 50s, but genuinely thriving in them. We are going to talk about what is actually happening inside your body right now, why it is happening, and what the research says you can do about it. If you want more science-backed health videos every week, subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss one. Stay with me through to the end, because number 5 is the one most doctors never bring up in a clinical appointment, and studies suggest it may be the most powerful longevity factor of all. The silent crisis running through your arteries. Let's start with something that affects almost half of all adults in this age group, and most of them have no idea. According to the CDC, approximately 45% of adults between the ages of 45 and 64 are already living with high blood pressure. By the time people reach their 60s, that number climbs to over 75%. And here is what makes this so medically significant. Hypertension is called the silent condition precisely because the majority of people feel completely normal while it is quietly straining their heart, their arteries, and their kidneys. This is not a minor inconvenience. Sustained high blood pressure is one of the leading contributors to heart disease, stroke, and kidney failure. And heart disease affects approximately 50% of adults over 50. Think about that number for a moment. 1 in 2. So what does the research say actually moves the needle here? A Johns Hopkins-led study tracking over 6,000 people found that combining a Mediterranean-style diet with regular physical activity and maintaining a healthy weight reduced risk of death during the study period by 80%. 80%. That is not a small signal, that is a landmark finding. The Mediterranean diet, rich in olive oil, fatty fish, legumes, vegetables, and whole grains, has been shown across populations of hundreds of thousands of people to reduce cardiovascular risk, support healthy blood pressure, and protect against arterial aging. Researchers also point to magnesium as a mineral that plays a direct role in blood vessel relaxation and blood pressure regulation. And studies suggest that many adults over 50 are not getting enough from diet alone. Omega-3 fatty acids from sources like salmon, mackerel, walnuts, and flaxseed have also shown consistent evidence for supporting cardiovascular and inflammatory health. Always speak with your doctor before adding any supplement to your routine, but these are the conversations worth having. But your heart is only one part of what is changing, because beneath the surface, your hormones are undergoing one of the most significant shifts of your entire adult life. And that is where things get genuinely fascinating. The hormone shift nobody warned you about. For women in their 50s, the hormonal landscape changes profoundly. Perimenopause and menopause bring a decline in estrogen and progesterone, the two hormones that, among many other roles, help regulate body temperature. When those levels drop, the body's thermostat becomes less reliable. That is the biological mechanism behind hot flashes, and research suggests that up to 75% or more of women going through menopause experience them. A meta-analysis published in JAMA examined plant-based therapies for menopausal symptoms and found that phytoestrogens, compounds found naturally in soy, flax seeds, and certain legumes, showed a modest but meaningful reduction in hot flash frequency for some women. The evidence is not definitive for everyone, but it is worth discussing with your doctor, particularly if you are exploring non-hormonal approaches. For men, the conversation is different but equally important. Research shows that testosterone levels decline gradually, approximately 1% per year after the age of 40. By the 50s, a meaningful proportion of men begin noticing what clinicians sometimes call andropause: reduced energy, lower motivation, changes in mood, and shifts in physical performance. Mayo Clinic notes that while most men remain within a broadly normal range, the lower end of that range can still produce noticeable symptoms. What does the evidence support for men? Studies consistently point to resistance training as one of the most effective natural strategies for supporting testosterone levels and muscle health. Combined with adequate sleep, a diet rich in healthy fats and quality protein, and stress reduction, these lifestyle inputs have a documented physiological effect. The key insight here, for both men and women, is that these hormonal changes are predictable. They are not random, which means they can be prepared for and addressed proactively, not just endured. What researchers found next, however, surprised even those who study aging professionally, because it turns out that joints and inflammation tell a story that goes far beyond just aching knees. The inflammation problem most people are ignoring. Around 24% of adults aged 45 to 64 report significant joint pain. But here is what is rarely discussed. The inflammation driving that joint pain is often the same systemic inflammation, accelerating cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and metabolic dysfunction. Joint pain, in many cases, is not just a musculoskeletal problem, it is a whole body signal. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now recognized by researchers as one of the central drivers of accelerated biological aging. The 2025 systematic review, published on evidence-based pathways to healthy aging, identified diet, physical activity, and stress management as the three most consistent modulators of this inflammatory baseline. On the nutritional side, curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, has been studied extensively for its anti-inflammatory properties, with evidence suggesting it may help reduce markers of inflammation and joint discomfort. Omega-3 fatty acids continue to appear across virtually every major domain of age-related health, from joint support to brain function to cardiovascular protection. Collagen-supporting foods, bone broth, vitamin C-rich vegetables, quality protein also show relevance for connective tissue health as we age. The action here is straightforward. An anti-inflammatory dietary pattern, consistent moderate movement, and targeted nutritional support represent an evidence-based approach to protecting not just your joints, but the entire biological system underneath them. And speaking of systems, There is one that quietly governs all of the above, one that, when disrupted, makes everything harder. You probably already know what it is. But you may not know how dramatically it changes after 50, why sleep becomes your most powerful medicine after 50. Between 30 and 48% of older adults report symptoms of insomnia. That is not a side issue, it is a health emergency hiding in plain sight. Here is why sleep matters so profoundly at this stage of life. During deep sleep, your brain clears metabolic waste products, your body repairs muscle tissue, your immune system consolidates its defenses, and your hormonal systems reset. Research has linked chronically disrupted sleep in midlife to elevated cardiovascular risk, impaired glucose regulation, increased inflammatory markers, and a meaningfully higher risk of cognitive decline. One of the most overlooked drivers of sleep disruption after 50 is core body temperature. The body naturally needs to cool slightly to initiate and sustain deep sleep, and hormonal changes, particularly in women during menopause, can interfere with that temperature regulation process. This is why a cool, dark sleeping environment is not just a comfort preference, it is a physiological tool. The CDC recommends 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep for all adults, and evidence suggests that sleep consistency, going to bed and waking at the same time daily, may be as important as duration. Magnesium has shown some evidence for supporting sleep quality, likely through its role in regulating the nervous system and muscle relaxation. Tart cherry juice has been studied as a natural source of melatonin precursors with mild sleep-supporting properties. But there is one strategy that addresses sleep, inflammation, hormones, and the next topic all at once. And it requires nothing more than showing up consistently, 3 times a week. The single most powerful anti-aging tool you already have access to. A study examining adults over 40 found that taking more than 8,000 steps per day compared to just 4,000 was associated with a 51% reduction in all-cause mortality. That number is almost hard to believe until you understand the biology behind it. Movement does something that no supplement currently on the market can fully replicate. It builds and maintains muscle mass. After the age of 50, without intentional resistance to counteract it, adults lose between 1 and 2% of their muscle mass per year, a process called sarcopenia. That muscle loss is directly linked to metabolic slowdown, increased fall risk, reduced bone density, and long-term loss of independence. Research consistently shows that resistance training, even 2 to 3 sessions per week at moderate intensity, can preserve and rebuild muscle mass, support bone density, improve insulin sensitivity, and reduce cardiovascular risk. Harvard Health and the CDC both identify it as one of the highest value interventions for healthy aging. For women specifically, postmenopausal bone loss makes weight-bearing exercise not optional but essential. Studies suggest it is one of the most effective non-pharmacological approaches to reducing fracture risk. You do not need a complex program. Bodyweight squats, light dumbbells, resistance bands, the form of exercise matters far less than the consistency. What the research is clear on is this: the people who maintain muscle in their 50s tend to be the people who thrive in their 70s and 80s. But here is the piece that often gets left off the clinical checklist entirely, and it may be the one that matters most: the longevity factor that has nothing to do with exercise or diet. A landmark Harvard longitudinal study, one of the longest-running investigations of adult life ever conducted, identified social connection as one of the single strongest predictors of long-term health and longevity. Not cholesterol, not fitness scores. Relationships. The CDC now formally includes social connectedness as a pillar of healthy aging, alongside diet and physical activity. And researchers studying mortality patterns have noted that social isolation carries risks for long-term health comparable to well-established physical risk factors. Your 50s are often when this becomes quietly urgent. Children leave home, career identities shift, social circles naturally narrow. If you are not actively rebuilding and deepening your connections during this decade, the research suggests the health cost accumulates slowly and invisibly. This means pursuing community deliberately. It means staying engaged with family, not just being available, but showing up with intention. It means finding a group, a cause, a practice, or a community of people you are genuinely building something with. And for many people, it also means finding renewed purpose, a reason to get up in the morning that extends beyond personal goals. Studies suggest that a sense of purpose is independently associated with lower rates of cognitive decline and all-cause mortality. Your 50s are not the end of your story. Based on the research, they may be the most important chapter in determining how the rest of it unfolds. What you do now changes everything. Let me leave you with this. Researchers at Johns Hopkins found that 4 lifestyle changes alone, diet, exercise, healthy weight, and not smoking, were associated with an 80% reduction in mortality risk over the study period. Not a new drug, not a procedure, 4 choices made consistently. You have more control over your biological trajectory in your 50s than at almost any other time in life. The evidence is clear on what works: an anti-inflammatory diet anchored in whole foods and healthy fats, consistent resistance training and daily movement, restorative and consistent sleep, informed conversations with your doctor about hormone health and key nutrient levels, and, perhaps most powerfully, deep, intentional social connection and a sense of purpose that pulls you forward. If this helped you today, share it with someone in their 50s who needs to hear it. It might genuinely make a difference for them. I'll see you in the next one.